Hello out there, everybody. Manny here at Area 503. And I hope you all have been well since our last video. Today I have some information about some genuine UFO threats to the aviation community. And I don't mean some made-up threats like these boneheads were selling us on.
And that control, and they're flying with impunity, Tucker, within our airspace, that is coming forward, and they can outmaneuver, outperform.
Nope. These are genuine threats to the airline industry, both commercial and military. Take a look at this. Back in February, an American Airlines jet was on a way from Cincinnati to Phoenix. Mid-flight, somewhere over New Mexico at about 36,000 feet, or roughly 11,000 meters, a large cylindrical UFO flew over the fully loaded passenger airplane. But you don't have to take my word for it. Listen to what the pilot had to say when he reported the encounter.
Have any targets up here? We just had something go right over the top of us that, I hate to say this, looked like a long cylindrical object. It almost looked like a cruise missile type of thing moving really fast that went right over the top of us.
Yeah, so whatever this thing was, it spooked this pilot so bad that he called into the tower to see if they had any targets up there, which they claimed they didn't. So that means whatever this thing was, it also wasn't on the ground-based radar. And that is what is called a Mode Z or stealth intruder. It's one that's visibly spotted by pilots in the air and tracked by them, but is not showing up on ground-based radar systems or on the TCAS or traffic collision avoidance system. But I'm not surprised that this wouldn't show up on TCAS because TCAS uses the flight transponders that all commercial aircraft carry. And UFOs don't have transponders. But then again, neither do drones. Let's listen to that audio one more time, and I want to point out a couple of things.
Have any targets up here? We just had something go right over the top of us that, I hate to say this, looked like a long cylindrical object. It almost looked like a cruise missile type of thing moving really fast that went right over the top of us.
So we already established that this UFO is a stealth object because it snuck up on the pilot and it didn't appear on his TCAS. And also, the ground-based radar systems didn't pick it up either. And the pilot described it as a long cylindrical object, possibly a rocket. But I am pretty sure this was no rocket. If that was a rocket, it should have shown up on all sorts of radar systems. Plus, there should have been all kinds of news about that. Somebody firing a rocket at a commercial airliner over the United States of America? Yeah, I think the whole world would know about that, right? So I think it's pretty safe to discount a rocket in this scenario here. And I'm pretty sure that we can discount any other commercial or military aircraft because I think the pilot would have been able to identify that as close as this thing came to him. So if it's not an aircraft and it's not a rocket, what else could it be? So I guess the next thing to consider is that this might be some form of a atmospheric or a weather balloon of some kind. But the pilot had said that this thing was moving really fast right over the top of them. And that airplane was probably moving at about 500 miles or 800 kilometers per hour. I don't think any weather balloon can travel that fast, right? So I think we can rule that out as well. And so I guess we're right back to square one on this sighting. It's an unidentified flying object. A I don't know. That's right, I'm completely stumped here. I have no clue what this could be. So if you've got some kind of idea of what you think it was that this pilot saw, let me know down in the comments section down below. And if you have any links to some sort of video evidence, drop those in the comments as well. But for now, let's move over to the Gulf of St. Lawrence in eastern Canada. On July 30th, 2 pilots reported seeing a green UFO that vanished into the clouds. A KLM Royal Dutch Airline plane flying from Boston to Amsterdam witnessed a bright green flying object that flew into a cloud and then disappeared. And that wasn't the only pilot to witness the event. There was also a Canadian military aircraft in the area at the time. And it seems pretty obvious to me that this pilot noticed the UFO, because according to the transponder data for the flight, this aircraft diverted its course and ascended by 1,000 feet when it witnessed the UFO. So clearly they saw it, and they were either changing their course to get a better look at it, or this thing was close enough to them that they had to alter their course to avoid hitting it. It's truly got to be one or the other. There's no other reason to change your course when you see a UFO. Now, I tend to think that they were altering their course to avoid hitting it, because the C-177 Globemaster is a variant of the U.S. Hercules transport. This is a giant aircraft, and you don't move it unless you absolutely have to. It's not exactly the Porsche 911 of the skies. It's actually not a very agile aircraft. So the point is, I don't think that they're just going to whip it around to take a better look at this thing, but they might whip it around to get out of the way of it. But that leads us to ask, why wasn't there a public report from the Canadian military about this? They clearly saw it, and you have to assume that it was reported. Well, I doubt we're ever going to get any more information about this because the Canadian military doesn't have an official UFO reporting program. But hey, up until recently, neither did the US military. Officially. Right. I can only assume that the Canadians have an unofficial UFO reporting program like we've had for years, but hey, I truly have no way of knowing. But here we have another example of a so-called UFO threat because it caused a military airplane to divert its course. So yeah, we can chalk this one up in the books as a UFO threat.
These are craft under intelligent control, and they're flying with impunity.
Yeah, seems awfully threatening, doesn't it? A green UFO flying off into a cloud and disappearing. Sheesh. Let's move along to our next UFO threat that occurred over Chicago on August 22nd, when an Envoy flight was en route from Chicago O'Hare Airport to Detroit. The Envoy flight was climbing out of the airport at about 2,500 feet when it struck an unknown object that they believed to be a drone. Listen to this.
Departure Envoy 3961, we just hit something. I believe we hit a drone about 30 seconds ago. We'd like to return to Ohare.
Envoy 3961, roger, maintain 5,000 and turn left left-hand turn heading of 320.
Left turn 320, 5,000, Envoy 3961.
Envoy 3961, and you reporting assistance?
I don't believe so. We might want to have someone look at this. We might want to have someone inspect the airplane when we get on the ground.
Sounds good. We'll coordinate that and stand by for runway assignment.
So this flight struck something right after it took off.
And Envoy 3961, turn left heading 270.
Left turn 270, Envoy 3961.
And Envoy 3961, does the runway 9 left left to you?
Envoy 3961, I think so. Stand by.
Okay. And Envoy 3961, are you ready to return now?
Envoy 3961, I think we're going to a little bit of fuel. We're just above our max landing weight.
Roger. Envoy 3961, we'll just give you a box pattern until you're ready. Just keep me advised.
3961, thanks.
Envoy 3961, turn right heading 360.
360, Envoy 3961.
And Envoy 3961, come and maintain 6,000.
6,000, Envoy 3961.
And Envoy 3961, do you want to burn the fuel up or do you want to land above your landing weight on a longer runway?
We're trying to make our minds up on that 3961. We don't know what kind of damage happened to the airplane.
Okay.
Alright, 360 Envoy 3961. We have to burn off fuel for about 15 minutes. Would either a 10 center or a 9 center be due about?
10 center, affirmative. And 15 more minutes?
Yeah, about 15 more minutes, Envoy 39.
Envoy 3961, when able, how soon after departure did you hit that drone?
We were about, it was right after we turned. We were about 2,500. We were climbing through about 2,500 MSL Envoy 3961.
Copy, thank you.
Approach Envoy 3961. We're approximately 4 miles northwest of the airport when it happened, maybe 2,500 feet.
Envoy 3961, when you do return, you can expect runway 10 center to standard ILS, no CRM.
Alright, copy that 10 center standard ILS, and I think I mentioned earlier, but if you can have some vehicles waiting to do an exterior inspection after we land, that would be great. 3961.
Envoy 3961, yes sir, we've coordinated.
Appreciate it, thank you.
And Envoy 3961, whenever you have some time, I do have a phone number I'll need you to copy down for a phone call once you're on the deck and settled in.
Alright, 3961, I'm ready.
Envoy 3961, 847-608.
Alright, 847-608. We're not showing any indications of malfunctions or damage at this time, Envoy 3961. We are going to try to slow and configure early for the landing, just to make sure the flaps and the gear are working correctly.
Approach Envoy 3961, level at 6,000, and we're going to use gate 100 knots or lower.
Envoy 3961, that's on a prompt, speed your discretion.
3961, thanks.
3961, wind 040 at 8, runway 10 center, clear to land.
10 center, clear to land, Envoy 3961.
And Envoy 3961, for your planning purposes, we would like to get you off the runway and get you someplace parked to get inspected. So plan on getting off at one of the high speeds and then down towards like Echo, and we're going to keep you moving and get you inspected over there. Does that sound like a good plan?
That sounds good, Envoy 3961.
Okay.
So this flight struck something right after it took off. But the airplane was loaded down with extra fuel to make a longer flight, and so it was over its safe maximum landing weight. So they had to fly around and burn off some fuel before they attempted to land. That must have been pretty scary for the pilot, because his aircraft's been struck and they don't know how much, if any, damage the aircraft has sustained. And in the airline industry, the unknown is your worst enemy. So yeah, congratulations to that pilot for keeping a cool head and flying his route to lower the weight so that he could land safely. Well done, dude. Well done. Anyhow, after they landed, the aircraft was inspected and it had indeed suffered minor damages requiring about 12 hours of repair. So yeah, there's one more credible threat to the aviation industry by a UFO. And again, it wasn't much of a threat. The airplane was struck by this object and it was safely able to return to the airport and get repairs. But it is still concerning. I don't like the thought of anything striking an airplane in the air. Air travel on a massive level is dangerous enough as it is, so we really don't want any sort of outside factors influencing the safety, obviously. But with that being said, I really want to ask you all, just how much of a threat do you think that these UFO sightings were to those airplanes? Do you guys think that these were actually UFOs and that they're just being misidentified as drones? Do you think that they're drones as reported? If you think that they're drones, do you think that they're our drones, either military or commercial? Or do you think that they're actually a foreign adversary? Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I'm dying to hear your opinions. I personally find it more plausible to think that these are irresponsible commercial drone owners and that those guys are going to be in a whole lot of trouble when they do get caught. But you know, I did hear a rumor that some of these drones could be operated by satellite. Now, I couldn't dig up any concrete evidence to prove that, so I'm not going to talk about it too much here, but if any of you have heard something like that and you've got some kind of evidence, share those links down below too. I'd love to learn a little bit more about that. True or false? Anyhow, that's all that I've got for now on UFO threats, or drones, or I don't knows. I've got some interesting content coming up in the next few videos, so keep your eyes peeled for those notifications. But of course, they don't help if you don't have the channel subscribed and have the notification bell ticked, so go ahead and do that if you haven't yet. It's right down below, right next to the comments section. Alright y'all, I'm out of here. I'll catch y'all later. As always, this has been Manny at Area 503, and I wish you all the best until we meet again. And I am out of here to continue my search for universal truth.